This is the Hunt Quietly podcast. I'm Matt Ranella.
I think I might bring you up in conversation, but yeah, but of course now in my new role, I don't get to meet with her as much, so it's a little bit not as exciting, but yeah.
I always wonder how much my wife thinks about me when I'm not around, being that we live on opposite ends of the state.
I think I mean,
I guess
probably.
I would guess not very much.
Shit, that's what I am. I mean, it's kind of the legend out there, so like
I don't think she thinks about me very much at all.
If you're doing things right, that's probably a good place to be.
Yeah, she's just a very independent, busy person.
Oh yeah, moving and shaking, hard worker.
Yeah, she is coming to see me this weekend, and I'm freaking thrilled about that. So, you, just for the listening audience, we got to know each other because you used to be a tester staffer, and we unsuccessfully tried to get an access project across the finish line out here.
Yeah, and I think we were at the finish line a few times and got ripped out, and it just completely died when the governor changed, and it got terminal, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost 17 years with Tester, and
really, you were with him that long? Yep. How long was he? Was he a senator for 16 years?
18. He was there for 18. So.
Oh, that's right. Senate is a 6-year term. Okay. And what are you doing now?
I started. The funny thing is, I just kind of started, exposing some things and things that I couldn't talk about because, unfortunately, in a job like that, if you speak, you're speaking on behalf of a senator, and you don't really have the luxury of having your own voice. So I kind of started talking and speaking up on a few things, like the great sell-off in the Crazy Mountains, for instance, or, Superfund problems that, I couldn't get into, well, I guess I did while I was a senator, but, so even some of the more detailed and nuanced things.
Super fun sites.
Yeah. Like, the complete, screw ups on some and regulatory.
For the listening audience, those are sites. Those are the sites that what would you say are
the most contaminated sites in the country?
And there's how many Superfund sites are there in the U.S.?
Oh God, there's hundreds, if not over 1,000.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's some, Montana. I think there's 17 in Montana.
Oh, wow.
Some are bigger than others, and some of the biggest failures in Superfund, really, objectively, when you look at Butte, where I live, was one of the first Superfund sites designated in 1983, and
the Berkeley
very little is. Well, actually, everything up but the Berkeley, really. I mean, but the Berkeley's part of it, and it's the 100 years of smelting and lead fallout, and the EPA and various corporations pretending that that's not an issue. Very little cleanup in the bigger scheme. The human health side hasn't happened. So talking about what we call regulatory capture, when the corporations or industries that an agency is supposed to be regulating are pretty much calling the shots, and that's in a lot of places. That happens.
Say that again.
So when the industry that an agency is supposed to regulate, keep in check, is being allowed to make the decisions and dictate outcomes, that's known as regulatory capture.
How does that happen?
Big money and politics, and I'll tell you, you can see sometimes the swings historically when foundational documents are laid down. When depends on who's in the White House, who's appointed as EPA administrator. When you see an agency get eviscerated, or bad decisions being made and signed into law, a lot of it's politics, a lot of it's culture, And, I think in some cases, these agencies where you'll have somebody who's a project manager that works so closely with the employees of the polluter, they become too friendly and they let them
Uh-huh.
get away with stuff. And that's,
Uh-huh. I could see that. I could
it
see
does
that.
seem that
I
way.
am definitely not accusing my friends of being that way, but I have friends that work for and colleagues that work for Montana DEQ. And over the years, they've become very close with some of the coal mines they regulate, some of the the personnel there. It's got to be hard to write them a ticket for noncompliance when
Yeah, when you
they're
get
your
that
kind
too
of
chummy. I mean,
yeah.
here they'd have poker games together, go on fishing trips, go on golf trips, stuff like that. It's like you can't be objective and do your job when you've got that relationship. You're showing an
Uh-huh.
inability to separate.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the Crazy Mountain thing just got settled, right?
No, no, it's going to have to go to court. It's going to be, it's basically the biggest sell-off of public lands in history. It's
Oh, I thought that well, there was just something in the news about it.
I mean, the Forest Service, the obstacle, frankly, to that going through was
And
a
it's a
blacktop
land
farmer.
exchange, right?
You can call it that. That's technically what it is, but they also, have been trading off water rights and hollow promises that were never going to come true, and a lot of deception in the history. I mean, which is, there's books written about it. There was great article in New Yorker late last year that described it well.
This
But
is
it
the
was it
Crazy Mountains in Montana, folks, and there's some landowners there have blocked
it's called
access to certain chunks of the mountains, and this has led to a proposal to exchange certain chunks for other chunks of uh private, right? Exchange public for
the
private.
richest and most powerful people in the world, with the Yellowstone Club, are the drivers of this.
Okay.
I mean, they funded a so-called, fake grassroots group, hired lobbyists and consultants to try to create the optics of, oh, this is just simple people, trying to solve a problem, and it was funded by billionaires. And really, they want to own the Crazy Mountains. It's Swiss Alps in North America. It's beautiful. It's got great hunting. It's got high elevations for, alpine skiing. There's a lot of reasons that somebody would want to own it, and
Oh,
right in
it's
the middle of it.
stunning.
Well, in the middle of it, I mean, the Yellowstone Club, the company that owns them, they bought the Marlboro Ranch, the Crazy Mountain Ranch, that was
Right.
owned by Philip Morris, and they're building a couple golf courses.
The cigarette, the tobacco magnate.
Yep,
Yeah.
and they're building a couple world-class golf courses, and it is, it has its own little mock ghost town that's a luxury resort, and this is so exclusive. Their own website, they're going to have, they want 100 members, and you have to be so rich, it's invitation only.
Mm.
100 members in the world,
Mm.
and we are. If you're familiar with, Big Sky, Montana. I mean, you've got all these celebrities that have places there. It really is. It's the wealthiest people on earth. That's their party place to go skiing, and now in the summer too. And it would be fine. It's just to get into that class. Sometimes they just want to own things for the sake of owning it because somebody said no. And,
Yeah.
they bring their own problems. They bring economic disaster to communities. But, in that case, they got ecological disaster. I mean, the Gallatin River, South Fork of Gallatin is being
Got
absolutely decimated.
there's a bunch of like high concentrations of fecal coliforms in it now or something, isn't that right?
But
Is there something
between
like
that
that?
and the pharmaceuticals, there's, I've heard stories of amphibians changing gender and things like that. But the
Uh,
nitrates,
uh,
I mean, it flows green. It's just disgusting. And, Montana DEQ, they've been sued several times, still in court because they're looking the other way because they're big political donors. I mean, Donald Trump even had one of his biggest fundraisers in the Yellowstone Club. I think it was $100,000 a plate to go to it during the last election.
wait, what was the funding for? I'm
But
sorry.
Donald Trump for a political campaign, hundred
Oh,
thousand dollars a plate for a
plate.
fundraiser.
Wow,
You can
that is
imagine.
crazy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
it was. So yeah, we're talking some big money and big power, hedge funds, all kinds of things. And
So I wasn't crazy when I said there was a deal in the crazies. Because
you
here's an
weren't.
article from January 24th, 2025, in Meat Eater. Forest Service leadership approves controversial land swap in Montana's Crazy Mountains.
They approved the environmental assessment, which has flaws. And frankly, the only thing that was holding that up timing wise was a lot of questions coming from Senator Tester. Still asking questions and pointing out these flaws and telling the Forest Service, you better be acting in the public interest. And of course, he left office, and the signature, the forest supervisor signed that document the Friday before inauguration day. So they got
So,
rid of the obstacle.
so, would it be safe to say that the land exchange it's exchanging sections of land that be good for recreation in a lot of different forms of recreation? There's trails and good
Well, let's not
wildlife
make this sound
habitat.
good because the
No,
public
no,
gets
no, no.
shit.
I'm making it sound bad.
Well,
Hear me
so
out.
so
We're
basically, you can have a land
exchanging.
exchange.
We're exchanging. Tell me if I'm wrong about this. Pieces. What the American people are getting are pieces that are extremely rugged. Like,
Rocks and ice. Yeah.
yeah, okay. We're getting that in exchange for nice pieces that are good for recreation. Is that correct?
Well, prime elk habitat,
Okay.
prime subdivision and real estate habitat,
Okay.
and the Forest Service is they were greased up to try to pretend like this isn't for development, but the black reality is, you know, even if you say you can't be subdivided to 160,000 acres, you look at the land ownership in a lot of resort areas, Hawaii, you can build a lot of condos on 160 acres.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's they've already bought the Crazy Mountain Ranch, developing that, the golf courses. The billionaires have started buying up other ranches adjacent to that, surrounding the landscape. There's ranchers, good people that are being squeezed out by the billionaire neighbors with nuisance litigation, things like that. They're trying to buy a mountain ranch. It's just there's no other way to describe it. And a great article that described it really in depth, interviews one of the billionaires, was in New Yorker magazine in October, written by a guy named Ben Ryder Howe.
Oh,
Really a
okay.
good read.
I'll look it up. Okay, that's awesome. Good to know. So it's still in the
Yeah.
works. They're still moving and
It should be
shaking.
litigated, and I think we talked a little bit about conservation groups that start failing and falling down on the job, and what do they really stand for, and things that you and I have talked about for years that I know you've been passionate about, exploitation, in exchange for. There's some groups out there, to be frank, that they have abandoned their mission and they exist only for donors to support their staffs. They're there, and
Yeah.
people accepted money. There are groups that accepted big donations or even promises of donations to go along with this thing. And you know, I'll never understand fully why there were we had all these so-called conservationists and conservation orgs in Bozeman, doing this very public fight over a proposed piece of legislation on wilderness study areas, proposed, not even carried in by a member of Congress, fighting about that while in their backyard, the biggest sell-off and development of public lands in history is happening right there, and they didn't say a word. I mean, I shouldn't say they all didn't.
Okay. So
But
you're
the
saying
so-called,
when was this that you're talking? Late, flesh this out for me from start to finish. Pretend I know nothing.
I'm saying, probably starting in about 2017 when this started developing to
The
through last year.
the crazy mountain thing
Yeah,
started.
yeah, and we have these self-declared, guardians of wilderness and purity. They're attacking a collaborative group that was trying to come together to resolve things in the Gallatin Range, right outside of Bozeman.
With
And,
wilderness study areas.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, there's reasons to criticize and critique and ask questions and all that, but what really bothered me, and I would tell these groups, that are attacking the collaborators, it's like, you got this absolute horrible thing happening that you can't even have a wilderness, no wilderness debate if it's being given away to the Yellowstone Club. So, or developers. And, they wanted to pick each other apart. And I'll say, some of the collaborative group on
The
the other
group.
side,
Okay, so what were the groups, and why were they unwilling to get engaged with the crazy mountain thing?
I don't know. There was always excuses and things like that. Nothing that was substantial in my opinion.
There was
I,
a couple groups that did get involved. The
yeah,
PL
BHA.
BHA and PLWA, right?
Now, PLWA until the very end didn't really get terribly engaged because there was litigation over a couple of trails.
Right.
BHA and the Friends of the Crazy Mountains were leading, and that litigation, it got kind of commingled because there were two different types of trails. One didn't really even get addressed, and that was the keystone to this land trade. That was kind of a real bummer that it didn't get addressed by the judge. But you have groups that they were completely, and still are to this day, trying to sell this things on the ground. You had Park County Environmental Council. They'll write comments, the forest shifter, or agree superficially, oh, there's problems, but they're pounding on doors to ranchers and hosting all these meetings talking about how great this thing is. And
The Yellowstone Club thing?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, a lot. I mean, early on, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation was at the table. So, I mean, I don't know if there's much worse for elk than
And they
subdivisions.
and they were on board with the land exchange?
Yeah, they kind of got quiet in the early days when this fake grassroots group formed. They were part of that. I will say, there were others that got involved that I think they were sincerely trying to have a conversation and make it better. They left the table, like Montana Wildlife Federation. I
Mm-hmm.
think, because there's an opportunity to do land exchanges that are a win-win.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I think there were groups that believed that this could be a win-win, but as it started to become clear that something else is afoot, and these people improving public access when you replace a few miles of trail with, well, we'll build you a 23-mile trail, to go around the long way. You know, maybe I'd have to know a guy with llamas to traverse that, but
Is that the plan?
that's what they were proposing, and it's a wink and a promise on the side. But these lobbyists who they hired to snowball people, they were promising, and they were just outright lying. I mean, they were telling my office, Senator Tester's staff, it's like, oh yeah, the Crow tribe is going to get access to Crow Peak, which is private, and they never talked to the Crow tribe. There was no records of that. Crow tribe had no idea what was going on anyway when we finally asked them. And then the billionaire who owns Crow Peak, or Crazy Peak, he admitted I shouldn't say admitted. He when the reporter I mentioned, Ben Ryder Howe, asked him about it, he says, "I have no agreement with the Crow tribe. What are you talking about?"
Oh,
The lobbyists just lied, and they lied to everybody about these things. And they made a fortune selling this thing. Made an absolute
selling
fortune.
what?
Well, selling this to the public and having these, you know, Senator Tester told him via me, it's like, look, this has to go through a public process. We have to have, Forest Service has to do NEPA analysis, all this. Well, they spent a ton of money. Well, this group, well, they went around and had their own public meetings,
The group
in
being
select
the
places.
Yellowstone Club?
Yeah, their fake group that they hired that, had, Park County Environmental and some of these area ranchers who
So
were
they
going to,
kind of put together a group that had this veneer of being like a community group of like a diverse set of interests.
oh, they weren't diverse. It was the immediate
But that
landowners that
was
are
the veneer.
beneficiaries. Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah. And Park County Environmental was the, kind of the flagship. Oh, look, environmental groups are involved in this. But, they had a couple of their versions of town halls in places like Big Sky. Can't remember where the others were. They did 3. And they came back and said, look, we did public comment. Everybody we talked to loved it. Here's 100 comments. I'm like, that's not public comment. They were frustrated. Well, what do we need? They wanted Senator Tester to just introduce legislation and sneak it through by the dark of night. And now I
Mhm.
understand why, because the longer it drug on, and they were getting pretty panicky about the time. We need this time now. Well, then it became public knowledge that the Yellowstone Club was acquiring the Crazy Mountain Ranch.
Oh, so they were trying to do all this on the sly without revealing that.
You
That
betcha, you betcha. And every time they talk, I'm like, John Tester does not operate that way. He listens to people. You got to follow laws and process, and he's going to take his nod from Montanans. Said, go ask Danes. He'll operate that way. Well, he keeps telling us that we have to get Tester to do it. And of course, he doesn't want his name on something, and it all stems from, he was working with these guys years ago. I don't know if you remember the stories about the Forest Service employee, the Danes and Secretary Perdue went after for asserting public access rights.
in the crazies.
Yeah, that was Sweetgrass Trail, and the guys, the Forest
That
Service
guy got
ranger,
fired and then he got rehired or something like that, right?
he was getting a lot of pressure. He was probably going to get fired. We intervened because there was inappropriate political interference in personnel matters. Congress can't do that shit. So John Tester called them out for listening to Danes and Purdue, and the congressman from Texas, Sessions was his name, and they wanted this guy fired for asserting the public right, and they ruined his life. They removed him from his position, made him sit at the kids' table for like 9 months, harassed just holy hell out of him. And still to this day, well, I shouldn't say to this day, even continuing into late last year, they harassed him within the agency, in the community, you name it. He finally left the Forest Service. And
Oh,
that guy's a hero because he was an ethical guy that didn't cave into the pressure, the political pressure, and the billionaires.
what's his name?
Alex Sienkiewicz.
Okay. And
And
now all the people that harassed him probably got fired too now.
no, unfortunately, they'll probably get promoted and rewarded.
Oh,
Actually,
but they'll be among the few.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I was just talking to Scott Fitzwilliams. You know who he is?
I don't think so.
He's been on the podcast a couple times. He just took the voluntary, the deferred,
Fork in the road. Yeah.
yeah, the deferred retirement program thing. But he was the superintendent of the White River National Forest until a month ago
I know the
in
name.
Colorado. Yeah, he was saying that he wouldn't be surprised if 40 to 50% of the Forest Service employees lost their jobs.
Well, there's a lot of efforts to privatize things of the Forest Service. I mean, you look at it, you know, shocker, Tim Sheehy wants to, farm out firefighting. And, his first and only piece of legislation is to get rid of Forest Service safety inspections on aircraft that he happens to
Oh,
own. You
so
know,
yeah, I gotta at least push back a little bit on the partisan stuff, because if I don't, then I'll lose my mom, three of my friends, and my uncle. That'd be like half my listeners if I
well, yeah,
if
but
I if I appear if I appear too political. So I gotta say
let me
one
give you
thing
an
nice.
answer.
I gotta say one thing nice. I gotta say one thing nice about Steve Daines. Did you hear? You know what VPA HIP is?
No.
Voluntary Public Access Habitat Improvement Program. It's part of the Farm Bill.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah,
Well, he just proposed sponsored legislation to make that permanent, and
good.
it passed the Senate. You know, so
Well, and
so I just
I got
I've done my due diligence in terms of trying to stay above the political fray.
Well, I will tell you, I mean, it's not something that comes across that way. I'm talking policy. There's good public policy and bad public policy. One of my best friends that I talk to all the time, we're involved with a bunch of groups together. His name is Mick Ringsack. He's a legit war hero. He's one of the few Americans that actually has a title and nobility. He's a knight of the Republic of Order of Tunisia, but he was also,
Whoa!
yeah, he was a Bush appointee to run the Small Business Administration. He's a Eisenhower Republican, one of my closest friends and advisors and banter partners. And I have a lot of friends that are Republicans that they don't like what's going on in the country because that's not what their party stood for. And he stands for. He's very active and engaged. Much like well, I don't know if you follow my stuff or my podcasts, and I'm
I
pretty
didn't
critical.
I didn't know you had a podcast.
Oh yeah, well, it kind of started by accident, and
What's it
we're
called?
mad about Montana.
Oh, well,
Madaboutmontana.com.
I will definitely be checking that out. How often do you record?
We were doing it twice a week during the legislature.
Damn.
I had last week was a written one, and I just noticed I had typos, but we had to expose
A
corruption.
written one? What do you mean?
Well, we had to do a written version because there were documents that needed to be shared. I
It
had
can't, by definition, it's not a podcast if it's a. You mean you wrote an article?
well, we wrote an article within the podcast, and we got to do a follow up podcast because I had
you gotta lay this out for me. How do you? Is it something you read or is it something you listen to?
well, you normally listen.
Do you
to
use
it,
your
but
eyes or ears when you're ingesting this?
this is pure ears. We're not fancy like you with video, but we.
I don't know this. I don't have video. This is just so you and I can see each other. I don't put out the video.
Oh, okay, good. Because you'd lose all kinds of listeners. With this, Jesus. But so
no.
no.
I gotta get my head around this. Are you
So
saying you wrote an article that people read, or did
So
you, or you read the article and that was the podcast? What are you saying?
No. So we do a podcast, kind of informal discussion. We bring on like Governor Schweitzer. We got a
No,
lot
I'm talking about this one episode that you just.
So normally it's a podcast. So we created a website because some of these issues that we're discussing, they have documentation that goes with them. So we went, some things we have to get out there to the public so it's in their hands and we're not just telling them about it. So we created a website, not the madaboutmontana.com. It's just me and another Butte guy. We don't know what the hell we're doing. And we just want to get information out there and fill the gaps that media is missing or that ignoring.
So when you say that you had a written podcast, you mean you had an article you have a new article on your website.
We did because we had to expose a lobbyist playbook that fell into my hands that described some really horrible things that are happening in Helen. And I had one of those earlier on Sportsman's Issues where there's another shell group popped up in Montana that's largely driving to sell off and profit off of public lands and wildlife, called the Montana Conservation Society.
Tell me about them.
Oh man, I got my hands on
they're a lobbying group.
Yep. And
the names, like the names these group come up with, they're just so misleading.
I mean, these guys are basically a culmination. Remember the old Bulls for Billionaires plans and let's privatize elk and reward, rich out-of-state landowners, billionaires that, own big land and reward them with special privileges. That's this group.
Okay, what's it called again?
Montana Conservation Society.
Okay.
It sounds nice and shit, but
really sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you should, it's CON should all be capitalized con. It's con. Or, I think that the acronym that everybody should just learn and know instead of saying that big thing is syphilis. Because it's just like syphilis.
It's an insidious rot.
It is a rot and a drip that just won't go away and keeps coming back for more. And it's funded by, well, God, no, nobody knows who it's funded by. But, the funny thing is you look at the board members when it was founded, Montana Senator Wiley Galt is on the board.
When was he a senator? Oh, he's still a senator. He's a state senator. Okay.
Oh yeah, and he's introducing all kinds of legislation with his group and some other conservation groups to, benefit his own interests.
Wait, other conservation groups, like legitimate conservation groups, or
that list is short, so we can just list those off, legitimate conservation groups. But anyway, so no, they well, yeah, I guess, yeah, they plotted with, all of a sudden, part of this lobbying document, they had Trout Unlimited involved.
Okay, so what are they trying to accomplish that Trout Unlimited is in agreement with?
Dams for donors, which Trout Unlimited would tell you, we're trying to build off-stream storage to
what?
Off-stream storage, like reservoirs to get
Dams
to.
for what?
I call it dams for donors.
Okay.
And it's funny, I came up with that name, and then actually the lobbyists, because they're raiding the the marijuana tax revenue. That those of us who voted for it, some of us who I don't smoke weed, it makes me paranoid. But when I saw, it's going to help veterans, county roads, and Habitat Montana in it, I'm in. I'll vote for this. That's a big deal.
Oh yeah,
Well,
and they're always trying to. Okay, folks, just backstory real quick. This marijuana tax, it was in the legislation when it got instituted that some portion of it would go towards what, the fish, wildlife, and
well,
parks for easements or something like
yeah,
that.
basically, there were a bunch of things like that. It was a voter initiative to legalize marijuana. And, it was kind of the intention, and conservation groups partnered together, not Trout Unlimited, by the way. They tried to pull out Habitat Montana out of it. And most of the conservation movement supported it. Veterans groups, county governments, because the suggestion in the proposal was to use the marijuana tax revenue to fund these things like rural county roads, access and habitat programs like Habitat Montana, some veterans treatment, a little bit of law enforcement. So, it was pretty good spreading the money around. The legislature had to, formalize that in 2023. They did. Huge margins it passed. Giaforte vetoes the whole thing. So it sits in limbo. Well, come back to this session. Before the session, I get my
So it
hands
has
on.
been in limbo since the 2023 legislative
Yeah, yeah,
session. Okay.
yeah. So, if you think Giaforte has had all these slush funds because they sit on money, they sat on the ARPA money, it earned interest. So
What's
they're just in
ARPA?
this American Rescue Plan. That
Okay.
was the big COVID relief, that infrastructure and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
you gotta don't take our understanding, at least mine, for granted, because
yeah,
I
thank
don't
you
know
for
all
asking,
this.
because I
I don't know
the
all
long
this stuff. Um
so so we they didn't roll out some of the funding and created some interest slush funds that they used as slush funds. Let's just spend this money. We don't have to get legislative approval, and they were liking that. So this year, legislative session, we have the lobbyist playbook at the front end from the conservation people. They want to do really weird shit that doesn't make sense.
that you mean
But
Are you talking about Montana Conservation Society?
yes. So,
Okay.
the group of, I mean, it's laughable. There's a big king lobbyist that oversees a lot of really horrible stuff that's going on. He's the lobbyist for the Yellowstone Club. He's the lobbyist for, runs the Conservation Society. He runs all kinds of things. And you might remember another lobbyist who used to work for like mainstream conservation, Ben Lamb.
Oh,
He
I see. I am looking at Montana Conservation Society's website right now, and I see that Ben Lamb, that name rings a bell, is the policy director for them.
Yeah, he used to be a lobbyist. He worked for, a lot of conservation organizations in the past. Montana Wildlife Federation. He was the architect of the now failed elk camp at the Capitol in 23
What was
and
that?
23. Tried to get all the conservation organizations to get behind. I think the theory is all anybody cares about is elk, and that's it in Montana, and that's just not true. Not even all hunters are only elk hunters, but it was, you know, an effort to prioritize extra elk tags and opportunities for absentee landowners.
Okay.
Rich, rich out of state. You get an extra elk tag for every 2,500 acres you own, things like
Right.
that.
Right.
So if you're
Yeah, that
2,500.
and that passed. I mean, if you're a absentee landowner, you're guaranteed an elk tag, and if you have
And they promised
2,500
us it's
acres.
going to be a huge windfall and put all this money into extra programs. And I think a lot of us were skeptical that was ever going to happen, and just got the numbers from FWP. Saw those from last hunting season. The first season it was in effect, there were 131 people. So, the extra couple of dollars that they throw in for their tag didn't amount to much. Probably bought a case of paper somewhere in FWP. And
Yeah.
then last hunting season, it was 129. So it didn't relieve any pressure on public lands. That was the theory. So right now, there's an effort to repeal that because it didn't work. And you're a follower of the North American model. And not only, basic fairness, is a billionaire any better than you? Or should they have that same opportunity? And that's one thing where when we're talking wildlife and opportunity, um, I don't think creating classes of people is a good idea. It's not, it's a slippery slope. We start talking about things like the king's deer, coming back, and there's better ways to incentivize landowners to participate in block management and things. And I love what you're doing. I mean, I've been encouraging group. I got a big, great people, good friends, conservative. I've worked with them for years, helping them out as the Forest Service flicks them in the ear. Um, they're in the middle of, they're opponents to the Crazy Mountain Land Exchange because they
Who is
live
this?
there. It's the McFarland White Ranch.
Okay.
Um, Great people. They allow access. They want people to sign in and take care of it. And they have problems with, bad behavior, trespass, littering and stuff. And I think a little bit, those volunteer days to clean up and do things that, the sort of stuff you're doing, that's what they want. They want good neighbors. They want to be a good neighbor. And they're all about that. I talk to them often and they're like, yeah, they want to do it. And I think there's a
They're
lot of
not they're not enrolled in block management, or they are?
nah, I don't know the full story. And there's a lot of people. I'd hear about them in my neck of the woods. They get mad at the state for something else. They pull out of block management, and then some of them.
That I'm not. I wouldn't just. I'm not. There's like you don't have to. I don't think there's anything wrong with not being enrolled in block management. Like the fact that they're not enrolled in block management, but sound like they're still trying to provide a little bit of public access is
Right,
awesome.
and there's a lot of these people like they don't want to deal with the bureaucratic paper and say, "Fine, you come hunt and fish and whatever, take care of the place." You see something.
We have a group over there now that want to do a work project or two this summer, so that
in the Butte area.
Oh no!
Or in the Crazy Mountain area because these guys would love.
No, I'm getting confused. These guys are in Helena. But there's a sportsman's group. There's a very active sportsman's group in Butte. There's
no, I know them well. I thought you'd been sitting over there, but the Crazy Mountains where these guys are, they I'm sure they'd love to meet these guys. So we can hook up and connect and introduce them because I think what we need to do. I think is Montana. So I remember Montana I grew up in. We didn't have no trespassing signs. You'd ask somebody and they'd say, "Yeah, do it," and I'd go, I'm a fisherman. That's my big thing. I love hunting season because it gets you wackos off the river and I can have it to myself.
Right.
But but I see garbage, I pick it up, something's wrong, I see a fence down, I pick it up as best I can and put it back. And they always appreciated that. And then at some point, the no trespassing signs start up and we all started fighting and there's no, that good neighbor and let's all get along and work together and stuff just started falling apart. And I think you're doing an admirable job of putting that back together. I think we just need more of that and make it contagious.
It's amazing what you can get done without an organization and with okay, so yeah, we're doing this work to try to protect public access through these state-run programs like block management and similar programs in other states. But my friends and I here in town, we have relationships with landowners that we've cultivated over the years that have been extremely productive in terms of keeping the doors open. So, for example, there's it used to be a FWP fishing access site about 10 miles outside of Miles City. And then the owner to the boat ramp changed. They sold off to a different guy. And that guy, if you call him up, he'll let you go through. But he gets a little ticked off at some people that don't call at all, or people that go buzzing. You got to go right through the guy's yard. to go
Oh
to this.
God.
And, people driving too fast. Well, my two friends and I have taken this guy under our wing. He's become a friend of ours over the years now, over the last 3 or 4 years, like to the point where if he said, "Guys, I'm done with this boat ramp," we'd still hang out with this guy. Even if he wouldn't let us launch
Right.
there. But we've had appreciation dinners just for his family the last 2 years, and we'll continue to do that. Like it's not like thanks for letting me and my two buddies launch there. It's like thanks for letting the community launch there. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
and I think that kind of thing goes a long, long way.
You bet it does. And I think it makes us as sportsmen, respect the privilege a little bit more too. It's a little
Yeah,
bit, okay, this is his property. He is, partnering with us to allow this. We got to respect it. You got a little skin in the game, you got
right,
something to lose.
right,
And I think that's the sort of model. And I mean, you know, even some you got the local groups and things like that. A lot of everybody pitch in $5 and make up a sign or something and say, "Hey, no trespassing. Call first."
right, 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 right.
You
That's
know,
a great idea. That's a
yeah.
great idea. I'm writing that down. Uh,
Respect private property. Call first. Phone number. You know,
yeah. Oh, how come you're the one thinking of that? Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna call my friends tomorrow and ask them if they think that that's a good idea, and then we'll call this guy too. So, but okay, going back one or two topics. As you were talking, I was doing my best to listen and look into this Montana Conservation Society. Here's the thing. I wonder if you agree with this. When you get on the website of one of these sleazy groups, um, you read their mission statement and you can't tell what they're really trying to do at all.
right?
Right?
Lots of flowery words that say nothing, and it just really means bend over.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, yeah. So what what are they trying to accomplish?
You know, a lot of development and subdivision, really, because you look at the members of the board and the stuff they're doing, the legislation they're pushing. There's the exempt well issue. I mean,
What's that?
you know,
No,
well,
I
they
don't.
want to, or developers want to be able to tap as many wells as they want to, build new subdivisions. And when you're like the Galt family that owns, tons of land and have a subdivision, by the way, that, you lost a case in the Supreme Court that you can't just steal all the water in a basin with drilling a ton of wells. Um, they wanted to, push some legislation to allow that. And
So there's
those
a group in Montana called the Montana Conservation Society, and what their aim is to subdivide and develop land.
well, I think, if you ask them, I think, and I'm, at least they're public facing shtick. We're trying to improve relationship with landowners. And I'll say, I didn't come from the ag world. There's other groups that partner with them. And I shouldn't even say groups because one of the lobbyists that meets with the lobbyists for this group and TU and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and PERC is involved with it. So,
What's
that's
that?
private property environmental research council, I think. That, longtime privatization of public lands. They deny it now, but they keep, their co-founder publishes a lot of stuff talking about exactly that. And, you know, they would say private conservation is their goal.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll just leave it there and not. I think they're full of shit every time I talk to them. It's changes and they're weaseling somewhere. But anyway, so you got all these groups and then the lobbyists for these groups. Well, Montana stock growers is showing up and they're testifying on things that really aren't good for stock growers. And I'm hearing from their members, um, that they're really not happy what's happening with their lobbyists, the things they're fighting for in Helena. The rank and file stuff. Like,
The stock growers are wondering what their lobbyist is, the lobbyist that they hire is up to.
yeah, and they're talking like, we are not a developer organization. We deal with cattle,
Uh-huh.
and so when you got these deals cut between stock growers, these conservation society, and every now and then you'll have somebody who's from the hunting community, that partnering and talking about things that have nothing to do with any of those interests. Everybody starts wondering, it's like, well, what's really going on here? But
that's interesting. So that's common to, like, I am here at the legislative session representing such and such group, and then the bills that they support or whatever don't seem to have any bearing on what the group does.
Yeah, so there'll be things like, why is Trout Unlimited suddenly showing up testifying on hunting legislation? They're way out of their lane.
Okay.
They're stepping on hunters. Why? Why are they getting
so Trout
up?
Unlimited has taken stances that are detrimental to hunters?
Absolutely.
Like what?
They were in the middle of I think they were on the mule deer. I'd have to go back and look, because there's been some things with last session they were against Habitat Montana funding.
So they wanted to strip the conservation,
the marijuana money out. Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because they have their own priorities, and they want that funding for their priorities. And you could debate. Well, somebody else can debate. I'm not even going to bother with it. If building lakes, because sometimes they're lakes or dams, and all these billionaires, everybody wants a private fishing pond, and let's get public money to build it. I mean, that benefits an elite class of donors.
Okay, but so they thought that if they stripped the money out of Habitat Montana, the pot money, they could somehow redirect that towards building trout ponds for rich people?
Yeah, they say dams. They're going to do water retention to keep water in streams longer, and it's counterintuitive because everywhere else in the country, Trout Unlimited is trying to take down dams. But that's why I call it dams for donors. Where are they going to build these dams? Nobody wants to say. There's no details to it. Let's just do it. And it's kind of like the old line. They caught her out of context, but the conservatives ran around playing all the clips of Nancy Pelosi, slaughtering her words again on the Affordable Care Act. We have to pass the bill. We have to pass the bill so you can know what's in it. That's the sort of stuff that they're doing in Helena right now. It's like, we got to pass the bill so you know what's in it. No.
I would have to move there and immerse myself full time in politics in Helena to understand the incentive structure. I mean,
you won't, because right now there are 800 registered lobbyists and probably a couple hundred who aren't registering, operating in Helena for 150 legislators. It is out of control, and lobbyists are completely calling the shots in Helena. Completely. So,
do you think your typical legislator over there, when he's in a conversation with a lobbyist, is like dubious?
Not anymore. I think there's some. I shouldn't say typical. I think a lot of them just do it to say. Part of the problem we created. I used to be a big proponent of term limits. All term limits do, though, is empower somebody else. Because once you're a legislator and you're termed out and your district shifts or whatever, by the time you start figuring out how things work, or how to oversee things and get things done, you're gone. And the only people that know how systems work, like appropriations and how to manipulate things, the lobbyists are there for the long term. They have all the power and all the control.
Oh, because they understand the system better.
Because they've been there. And there's legislators who have admitted to me that, oh my God, I didn't even know this, because I would ask ex-lobbyists how to find money for this pet project they have, and they'd help me. Of course, they'd expect a favor back. And Brian Schweitzer, when he used to talk about,
He
these
was
legislators.
he was a governor of Montana.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I forget. Yeah, we got. I forget. You're big time. You're big time. So we got a big
Well,
audience
yeah,
here.
I'm trying to like have this appeal to people everywhere, you know.
Well, and I think you do. I think your message is great, and I'd love to help you carry it. But so Brian Schweitzer, very populist governor, moderate Democrat. Um, he really took on the lobbyists. He wouldn't let them in his office. He wouldn't meet with them, any of that. And he would always talk about the legislators, eating the lobbyist steak and sipping their whiskey. You remember that? And they
No,
still
I
they
don't.
still
That's
are.
awesome.
They still are. They're still doing it all the time. And you could buy these legislators, give them some meals and stuff, and they'll do anything you want. They're a cheap date. Well, and
Yeah.
it's funny. My old boss, John Tester, he came from the Montana legislature. So the first thing he did for his staff in DC, I mean, all of us, and he talked about that. We were absolutely prohibited from accepting any gift, even a pop,
Mm.
because of that culture in Helena. He saw how bad it was when he was there. He prohibited his staff from doing anything. He says, I'm not even going to remotely allow anybody to get into that.
Oh,
So, yeah, and it was refreshing. You couldn't accept any kind of gift, and, it was nice. But anyway, so that culture, that's what we did when we, voted in term limits. So this is a great idea. And here's the funny thing. It was, I think, 2005. He led this. There was a ballot initiative. And I think everybody wanted longer, but they created a 2-year moratorium. After you're out of office, you can't become a lobbyist for 2 years.
oh,
This last session, because all these legislators, they want to cash in and become lobbyists and make the real money. They made so many efforts to bring back a bill to eliminate that constitutional initiative that
oh,
we passed.
really?
They want to be able to become lobbyists right
Right
away.
away.
Start
Yeah.
let's get on the gravy train right away. And you see these, and I mean, it's not just anymore. It's not. You go look through the Commissioner of Political Practices. I mean, the people are benefiting from tax law and stuff like that, and challenging the residential homeowner property tax.
Hmm.
Well, Burlington Northern, Verizon, Northwestern Energy, they've got huge tax breaks. We got huge tax increases.
Mm.
And the lobbyists, the armies of lobbyists that these guys have, try and poor. Warren
What?
Buffett,
Who?
like Burlington Northern,
Oh, okay.
BNSF, Northwestern Energy, Talon, you name it, every corporation, these pharmaceuticals, it's so tough. We can't afford to operate in Montana unless you give us a tax break. Give me a break, man. Why no Warren Buffett, who owns Burlington Northern, and he looks like he's suffering and struggling to get by. So
Yeah.
my property
Right.
taxes have to go up to bail out Warren.
Yeah.
You
So,
know,
yeah. I
and if I were
Go
him,
ahead.
I'd do it too. That's why ethics rules and people being engaged are important to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
And it's not all that different from public access. You got to be active and engaged if you want to keep it. And that's
Hmm.
even on private property like you're doing. You want a landowner to give you access, you better have some skin in the game and be willing to extend a hand and, have the appreciation dinner and thank them, stuff like that. And they'll be good neighbors. But, you know, you put a lobbyist in charge to just bowl things over and bully things through, you create a lot of victims and hard feelings. And
Hmm.
that's what a lot of too many in the conservation movement have that attitude. And then when they get caught, they play victim.
Mm.
So, I mean, that's where I think I want the traditional organizations act right and be better, fight for
Yeah.
things. And I've seen, just this year, like Montana Wildlife Federation, they're turning into, an advocate for wildlife habitat, sportsmen, all that common sense.
They let me
You know,
speak at their conference last year.
See, they're smart. No, I mean they're doing great. I'd love to see others follow suit and come back. And Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I mean, they once cared about elk, believe it or
Yeah.
not. They actually
They
did.
once cared about hunters.
They did, yeah, and in a lot of them now,
You
it's
know what? Do you know about some of my gripes with them?
no.
They spend, I would love to know how much they spend on strictly on hunting videos. like with without any educational content to it at all, just strictly for entertainment. It's like we don't have enough we don't have enough elk hunting footage on YouTube that anybody can watch. And like, so they end up leasing like in effect leasing ranches for hunting celebrities to film elk hunts. So
And bring a
like,
few donors to meet the hunting celebrities. Oh yeah, it's a big business.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure they're,
Get the sponsor tags, and
yeah,
they don't care if they're big sponsors or are using temp services. As long as they're giving away the free backpack or all that sort of stuff.
yeah, 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 yeah. I am, I, I, with the conservation organizations, there's some things that blow me away. Like all the ways that they're, you know, I'm talking about hunting organizations that are making hunting worse in so many ways. And then they bullshit so bad. They just bullshit. Did you see? I don't know. You look at our Instagram, or I think our Instagram post get moved over to Facebook. Did you see that one I put out yesterday about the mule deer?
No, I didn't get that one.
Oh, so my friend John Kuntz, he's the president of Montana Hunters for Access, our little nonprofit. He gets this flyer from them, and it's got a pie chart, and it says 88 cents of the dollar goes towards the Mule Deer Foundation mission. He gets this mailing asking him to renew his membership. So, and then there's a pie chart. It shows 88% goes to the mission. Some small percentage goes to administration, 7%. And then 5% goes to, so totals to 100, to fundraising. Well, I spend 20 minutes with their financial documents, and I get that 44 cents in the dollar goes towards tags, merchandise, marketing, their convention, banquet, and their magazine.
Wow.
Like, if that isn't non-mission, what is?
I thought I watched some of your stuff, and I'll tell you funny stories. I mean, like the Elk Foundation, I'd meet with them, and half the time they're lobbyists for the timber industry, and I'm going, "What the hell is going
What?
on?" Yeah, yeah, and they wanted different timber reforms. Well, why? But the worst one, I
Well,
saw you
okay,
think.
so could it be that timber management is good for elk?
Well, it could be in some places, but you start looking at their board, and some of the companies that are on the board, and they're timber companies. It's like
Yeah.
they and they're following the money. I mean, if they had a bunch of pharmaceutical CEOs on their board, they'd be telling you how antidepressants are good for elk. That's just how they. Well,
Uh-huh.
National Wild Turkey Federation.
Yeah,
I would.
did you see we did a bunch of stuff on them?
I did, and I got to tell
Okay.
you, my time with Senator Tester, I'd be sitting at these meetings, and there'd be random guys show up, and every now and then from Wild Turkey Federation, and these would be meetings with the timber industry, and they're all of a sudden they're timber experts too. And then all of a sudden, years go by, and they never said anything that was substantial. Never talked about habitat, never talked about turkeys, any of that. And I'm like, this is weird. You got congressional staff here. You're not selling your core mission. You're worried about somebody else's. Well, then you start hearing about, the industry starts pushing for these outside contracts to manage timber sales. And you've got all these big forestry organizations, American Forest Resource Council. They start talking about, well, Wild Turkey Federation should really get this money and manage it. Of course, then you talk to the local mills in Montana who are really nervous and like, what the hell are these guys doing? There's no transparency in any of this stuff, bidding or anything. Well, I don't know. Well, the Forest Service nationally gave them a ton of contracts. to manage timber sales. Big
Huh.
money. And I mean, I still don't know what they have to do with wild turkeys. I know no
Yeah.
clue. But they are big in the timber industry and all that sort of stuff. And as far as I know, I'm not a wildlife biologist, but some of these places they're operating and doing timber projects, not turkey habitat. So
Oh. So yeah, if you I mean, first of all, if you decided you wanted to help us with some things, I'd be delighted. And I can't think of a way that would be more helpful than very discreet, very, yeah, confined, simplistic messages that really demonstrate where these nonprofits are going against their mission. Like stuff that's like well documented and easy to understand. So keep us in
yes,
mind for that stuff.
absolutely will, because some of them are pretty nuanced, and you got to follow the money and follow the winding paths and things like
And then
that.
you can't convince people if it gets too complicated. I think I have I mean, I'm in trouble every time I open my mouth or post something on the gram. But I do feel like I have a penchant for making complicated things somewhat digestible. But that's
So
and that you gotta, you if you don't, you'll people's attention spans are just too short.
that's my problem. I'm too wonky and too detailed, and I'll write a magnum opus that nobody's going to read. That's got all the facts.
I'm that way in my
So
work, but in this stuff, it's got to be kind of soundbitey, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's well,
And then,
I think yeah, there's opportunities there because I want them to be better, and I want them to not be breaking off and stabbing others in the conservation movement in the back. Because every time they get caught and you call them out, like, why are you starting battles within conservation? It's like I'm not. I'm calling out the bullshit you pulled, so you stop doing it and you be better.
that stuff drives me insane. This, like, why are you going after the conservation orgs? Or, it's like, because the American people only have so many dollars that they can devote to conservation and access. That money should be used effectively and reported on accurately. That's why I'm going after them. I can think of no more noble task than holding them to account.
When you got these species specific groups, because that's where it really seems to get bad,
Mm.
and they got a Taj Mahal for a headquarters and this huge staff. Where the hell do you think your donations are going?
Oh, some of
What
these
did,
guys make 400. I think the Elk Foundation CEO makes upwards of $400,000. I think the Ducks guy makes over $400,000. Yeah.
yeah, that's and if they're really good at what they do and they're moving the needle and proving their worth,
Oh, I
cool.
could do those jobs in my fucking sleep, man.
Yeah.
What is it? You get up in the morning, you go into the office, you sit in a couple meetings, then you go out to lunch with a big donor, and then how is I just can't see it being that tough.
I wouldn't think, but I mean, I can't do that stuff because the whole kiss and ass thing is not good. I don't do it well. I can't ask for money either. I suck at it. And I've had some. I mean, even since I've been in a job where I'm putting things together. I have a job, all that stuff. I might put together $1 billion deals because they're the right thing to do and they create jobs. I'm not getting anything out of it other than, well, it's my job and I kind of feel good about it, right?
If I
So
was running the Elk Foundation, I'd spend less time asking for money and more time trying to do good shit. Like,
I was actually going to contract with the
you
group
know?
that does good stuff, low budget, because they don't have a ton of money and they produce results and it's fun and it's good. Damn, like great. That'll supplement my income to pay my bills is doing it. Well, because I'm calling things out and pointing out these things, I got the lobbyists and the organizations calling and threatening donors and stuff like that. I finally just told them, I'll tell you what, I don't want anybody to have leverage over me. I don't want it to affect you. So instead of being, this leadership figure you wanted to contract with, how about I'll just be your super volunteer? and I'll do this stuff. I don't want to
Ah,
be paid because I am never going to give up my First Amendment rights again. Of course,
you wouldn't go back to be, you would never be a staffer for someone again.
no, and it's the only way, if there's somebody I really believe in, I left a better paying job to join John Tester because I believed in him.
Mm-hmm.
And could have made a lot more money, but I believed in him till the end. And things change and all that stuff. I think he personally was the same guy. He just had more responsibility and all that stuff comes. And hey, people spoke. So whatever. For me
Yeah.
personally, I mean, the stuff that I had to care, because people walk into the office, you got government isn't working. Doesn't matter if it's local, state, federal. They don't know where else to go. They come into your office, they're in crisis. They got a kid getting raped and nobody's doing anything. I would have that stuff and I'd carry it because
Oh,
empathetic and bleeding heart.
yeah.
It consumed me, man. And I wouldn't sleep at night and all this stuff. And for me personally, maybe not the country, not Montana, all that. One of the best things that happened was because I probably would have stuck with him to the bitter end, no matter what, if he would have won and all that stuff, because I believed in the man. But I probably would have had a heart attack, because of
Oh,
all that sort of stuff.
wow.
I mean,
Wow.
the stuff we went through and things that happened to you. I mean, I was so pissed off and had so many sleepless nights over that. Those things just add up and start eating at you because it was so wrong. I was so pissed off. And then
Oh, yeah, but that's what, oh man, I just love people like you that like they care enough about what they do that they can't let it go,
well,
you
that's where
know?
I didn't know you. I'm not Hunter. I didn't know the last name. I didn't. Well, I knew who you guys were. That's it. But I met you. And we talked about some issues and access issues and good opportunities. I'm like, this is my people. This is a good guy. He's a good government employee. That's what we need more of. So yeah, and that's the insult that really, really just hurts when you're not being respected or treated right, internally,
Yeah. Well,
externally.
yeah, yeah. Well, you did a lot to protect me, and I appreciate it. That job that you had, that is a big old slice of humble pie, to like, I am going to be one of several mouthpieces for another human being.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a lot of. I don't want to
I mean,
screw
it's
up,
like, I'm just saying, in terms of just, you got to swallow your ego a bit in that job, I would imagine.
and I love being the behind the scenes guy because I don't want credit for my work.
Mm,
It
yeah.
was perfectly suited for me to have John Tester be in the pretty face. And in his case, he's an anomaly in Congress. I know I have a lot of colleagues who work for other offices. We reported to him, and he was deeply engaged in a lot of things that most people would consider minutia. He wanted to know what
Oh,
was going on,
oh,
and
yeah.
I mean, the things would get filtered, so he didn't go off on anybody or scream at anybody. Because boy, if I would have gotten his ear over some of those things, he would have ripped somebody's head off. But they didn't
Mm,
let me. That's cool.
oh, wow.
It's good.
Wow.
There's times that you have to filter him because if he gets off his game or something, I mean, bad things happen. So I get it. But
Yeah.
if I would have called up with that one and got a hold of him directly, somebody would have got their head bit
With
off.
what one?
When you got in trouble for allegedly
Oh,
talking to me,
that. Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
was so pissed
Yeah.
off at that. That was just a tremendous injustice to try to find a scapegoat. And by the way, that was the same era when Secretary Perdue was going after Alex Sienkiewicz. That's why I was so worried.
Okay. Okay. So just for the listening audience, yeah, I got in trouble at work because I was advocating for this access site that involves land I work on.
Well, let
Um
me let me give you the escape here because we're talking. My job's 24/7. Matt would call me. We'd talk at night. He's off the clock. None of that. Did nothing wrong whatsoever. He's a sportsman. We saw an opportunity to do something great for sportsman and his employer. And actually, his managers before him, before I even knew Matt, had agreed we're pushing in the right direction to open this up to the public. We had everything greased out. And then Matt busted his ass to raise money to facilitate some of the equipment we need. Management changed and they completely changed position. He didn't reach out to me. I reached out to him. And, when it started falling apart, because, some agencies just get a little weird and don't want to lose control of everything and all that. it came down on his head because we were trying to do the right thing, and they fought it and still did the right thing and all that. But I'll tell you, um, that one was a hard one, and trying to deal with the state agency during a governor change
Yeah.
and a railroad. Railroads think they think they're their own
This
government,
fishing access site road crosses a railroad, and that was a big hang up. Yeah.
and not like there's not 40,000 crossings just like it everywhere.
Yeah, right. Right.
But
Yeah.
this one was the most critical, and his employer thought they act they treated themselves like a top secret weapon lab, with their secret
Yeah,
chips.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'd rib the people in DC and just make fun of them. Say, come on, man. I have access to like the Rocky Mountain Lab. They got smallpox, Ebola, all kinds of stuff over there. You guys aren't doing anything like they're doing. Get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That whole experience where what this was is it was a fishing access site that's on federal land, and it got shut down due to vandalism, and we were trying to get it reopened and institute some security measures. And it had been open since 1993 and then
well, let's
closed.
call it the vandalism. This was, a guy who didn't really like public access. This is before you came in. Some irrigation pipes got ran over. Somebody was an asshole, drove off the road, tore up a pipe. I don't think we're talking about math, but that's the vandalism. And I think we could have dealt with this, as a community, really, and browbeat some sportsmen into, not doing stuff like that. But my God, it turned into,
Yeah.
you know,
But just the fact that I couldn't get that accomplished, and that I got powerful people involved and we couldn't get that accomplished, made me wonder how anything ever gets gets for society gets accomplished.
well, there's the best lesson out of this for everybody, because I tell people all the time when they come up with, there'll be a conspiracy that goes around, government's doing this. It's like, look, man, if the government had to get together and decide what we're eating for lunch, we'd starve to death.
Mm-hmm.
But well, we got to fill out all these forms, go through 15 different processes. I mean, we worked on this thing for years.
Mm-hmm.
And they acted like, oh my God, I mean, how do we ever get anything done? That's why people hate government. And that was a real an example of how we shouldn't be doing much of anything. I mean, if they would have just said no instead of leading everybody on and all that, we could have fought that. We could have legislated. We could have dealt with it a different way, or just gone away. But they didn't, and that was half of the insult.
Yeah, there was somewhere between a yes and a no for a year and a half as we tried to get this thing
Now
across
they
the
closed
finish
down
line.
all public access to it now, didn't they? Even
Yeah.
hunting and running. And
Well, no, you can hunt. They still have hunting where I work at the. We're talking about this lab where I work, ladies and gentlemen, and
you shouldn't talk about it. But.
Yeah, and I'm not representing myself in my professional capacity.
They do fantastic work, fantastic and important work. I always say that.
Well, thank you. We sure try, and yeah, but they do allow public hunting at this facility still. So
I mean, all the club.
Good.
I think there are people get their feelings hurt when somebody's telling them what to do, and then it's like, well, we're not going to allow people to jog here. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
But that's the way the world works, and that's I think we can get a lot done being good neighbors, even with that, and
I mean, they're just administrator sorts of folks. They so often they just reflexively say no to things because
it's easier.
It's easier. That's why the BLM doesn't even. I mean, they were. I don't know what they got new mandates now, but it was mandated that they were supposed to work on access under the Biden administration, and they did they did nothing because it was just like easier to just rubber stamp oil and gas permits, and
when we had that, when we first started working on this, we had a really good manager out there, and for the BLM, who was on board with us. He wanted to help and be involved. And then we had my friend, he's promoted. I think he's still with him, Scott Haight.
Mm.
When you guys stole him, he was a Butte guy with me for a while. He was
Yeah,
great
yeah,
over
yeah,
here.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And that guy wanted to work with us. He was like, "Yeah, tell us what we can do to facilitate this with our fellow federal agency." And sometimes it's just something like that is like, well, they're Department of Interior and we're ag, so they better stay the hell away from us.
Oh, you know, man, I I feel like I feel like BLM is about to get hosed.
They are. And they got eviscerated during the first one. And it wasn't, I don't want to blame Trump, but William Perry Penley, I mean, he was there to drive them into the ditch.
Mm.
And he did a good job of it. And then,
I just think that they're going to get massively their employees who their labor force is going to get massively cut. I think
when he,
I think there's a very good chance I'll lose my job in the next couple months, but
I hope
um
not. I think, you do, well, everybody does. I mean, there's exceptions, but everybody does an important work. It's a little piece of the puzzle that, you don't take for granted. You don't appreciate till it's gone. But like those BLM employees, some people, they just sit there at a desk. I'm like, no, man, they got a tough job. And they're dealing with the public, they're dealing with access, they're dealing with broken fences, mining, grazing water, complicated, and you don't know it until you walk a mile in their shoes. I didn't know it, until I worked in it. And I mean, I worked for the Postal Service before I worked here, so we're for Senator Tester. So, I knew bureaucracy and things that seem so simple that are so complicated. You start tinkering with government and getting rid of people, other things start to suffer. And I worry when you got the Secretary of Interior who starts talking about ideas that we can use public lands to pay down the national debt, sell them off, or we can
mhm.
use them for development, housing development, and the belief that, yeah, I mean, like the 1872 mining laws give mining rights, but you still have to make real determinations for the public benefit if mining is appropriate everywhere all the time on every square foot of ground, because there's some things where what's above the ground is worth more than below. That's why we have robust public comment periods and should be driven by science and things like that. But when we get away from that and the pendulum starts swinging, starts getting more and more radical, and there'll be people that you know then revenge cards start adding up even in Congress. And it's just, man, we just got to return to a sense of you know deliberation and calm and sensible decisions.
Yeah. What terrifies me right now is that, okay, as someone that believes that civil servants play an important role in natural resource management, I'm coming at it from that, uh, uh, you know, that's a precondition. That's like something I believe. So that I believe that the loss of civil servants in natural resource management jobs is scary to me. And but then I look at the sorts of jobs that are getting cut right now, like in the park service. They are the sorts of jobs that people in society will notice have gone away immediately. Like I'm a researcher. I could be gone for quite a while before anybody would notice, a research
No, I'll tell you
accomplished.
what. How many people? You guys probably got 50 employees, right?
No, not anymore. No, we're down to like 25. But let me finish this. So, but they're getting rid of people right now that empty the trash and clean out the shitter
Oh yeah.
and clear the trails and fight the fires. These are people that will be that these aren't. I mean, the people in the administration aren't stupid. They got to realize that those people are going to be missed right away, and they're brazen enough to go after them. Makes me think they're going to have no problem getting rid of somebody that does permitting at BLM, or a biologist at BLM, or
Oh
a
yeah.
range con at BLM, or a researcher for the Forest Service or whatever.
Well, and it's easy to listen to people. I mean, and I get it. And there's different personalities. I knew range cons, say, in the Forest Service. Some really good ones that good relationships could go out and say, hey, you're doing this wrong. Let's do it right. Here's how we do. How can I help? And you got the others that, it's kind of, we all got friends like that you grew up with and they become a cop and you're going, oh, Jesus, this is, well, somebody gave him a badge and a gun. you know. So unfortunately, I have a lot of friends like that in position of power. Like, oh my God, how did this happen?
Yeah.
I ran into an old high school buddy at an event I was speaking, and I looked at him, and he had a priest collar on. I went, "You're a priest?"
Oh wow.
He's like, "Yeah." And he
Wow.
said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I work for Senator Tester." He said, "You work for a senator?" I said, "Here's the deal. We're not telling any stories, or it's assured mutual destruction."
That's
So,
hilarious.
but yeah, public employees. But you think about this: 25 people, good paying jobs, good middle class jobs. You guys aren't cashing in like a lot of members of the public thing. But in a small town like Miles City, Montana, you guys have, homes, you're licensing your vehicles, you're paying taxes, you're shopping in the grocery store, you buy your new truck there, all that sort of stuff. 25 good paying middle class sustainable jobs gone. You have to sell your house, you're not paying taxes
Oh,
anymore, stuff
that's
like
just
that.
that. I mean, then you got BLM, who employs way more than we do. You got NRCS, FSA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this town's gonna be if 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 it goes, things go on the more dramatic end of what I'm anticipating, it's going to be a major hit economically. Plus, I think a lot of good work isn't going to get done.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's important work. I mean, we got to evolve and figure out better ways to do things over time. And we stop doing that, bad things happen.
Yeah, I think it's funny to me. It's like one of the very few places where this administration wants to spend more is on farm subsidies, which but they want to cut the agencies that administer the subsidies. So how's that going to work?
Yeah, because the people are supposed to go out and make sure things are being used right and things like that. They'll be gone, so there'll be all kinds of uses. Human
Oh
nature.
yeah. Yeah, it'd be a great time to apply for a new pivot because no one's going to go out and make sure that you put it in.
Oh shit! I bought a boat instead. Oh, I mean that really, there are people that are important to have to drive around and look and make sure that the pivot's there and it's actually working and it's somebody doesn't have the new motorhome out back of the yard. But because people do it. I mean, I'm from Butte. If nobody knows Butte, Montana, it's the only city in the country that has its own constitutional amendment because of corruption.
Oh, what, really?
Yeah, well, direct election of United States senators stems from corruption in Butte with William A. Clark buying his way into a Senate seat when the legislature used to do
Oh,
it. So yeah,
so
that's
how did the election system work
up,
then?
in, up until then, state legislatures, they elected senators. So the Senate was
Okay.
entire, and that's where we had to change it to direct popular vote because William Clark having his people go through $5,000 and $10,000 bundles over transoms to get votes.
Okay.
They say, well, we probably ought to stop that. Of course, Citizens United rolled that back, and that's kind of happening again now. But
What they rolled back? Well, it's still a popular vote,
well,
right?
yeah, but now you got unlimited contributions.
Lobbyists, yeah, or yeah,
Well, no, not
yeah,
even. It's not even the
not
lobbyists. I mean,
lobbyists. No,
but
unlimited, yeah,
and there's no
financial
such thing as
donations.
now that corporations donations are considered speech and corporations are people, they kind of forgot, if you're a publicly traded corporation on Wall Street, you're a global corporation. It's like British Petroleum is still primarily foreign, and it is a big player in American elections.
Oh wow!
And there's a ton of all these corporations, they're global, but oh my
But
God, they have speech too now. So it's
yeah,
dangerous.
that's crazy to think about. Yeah, that
Yeah.
foreign dollars can influence our elections like that way through huge donations. Yeah, I never really pieced that together.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep. Yeah, it's scary. And the dark money ads and things like that. I mean, I watched that election and I've heard from
The
people who know Tim,
no, I don't know what you're talking about.
dark unaccountable money that doesn't have to be reported where it comes from, like the third party expenditures when you see those ads painting somebody as the devil, no matter who they are, and making up lies more often than not. I didn't see an ad about John Tester that was actually true that they ran. It's like, oh my God.
Okay, and you're saying some of those ads you have no way of knowing who even paid for them?
Right. Yeah, they'll have some
Okay.
flowery name, and we don't get to know who funded it.
Oh,
And
okay. Okay.
that happened on both sides. And I mean, I have people I know well who have told me, I can disagree with Tim Sheehy on policies, and what he does
Hmm.
and all that. I've
Tim
heard that
Sheehy
he,
is the one that beat John Tester, ladies and
yep,
gentlemen.
yep, and he's a senator now. I've heard that he's a nice guy. Actually, I know a guy who said this guy I think it was a kidney transplant and like needed a short turnaround life to save his life. His company donated a flight to get him to a hospital for surgery. So everybody has some good in him, and he's a nice guy. And I mean, these ads that come in from third parties, um, I get guilty sucked into it too. There's a lot of things I don't like about his positions, but you know, he got painted out just like John Tester did to be a person that he's not. Attack the policies.
in the ads, you mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah,
and I
those
just
ads were some of the Tester Sheehy ads on both sides were some of the most childish ads I just have ever seen. They were
yeah,
so cringe. Like,
they really are. But people love them. They work. That's why
well, that's
that's
the
what.
thing. I was like, these must be calibrated to, what people want to see to make their voting decision. But there was, I never, for some reason, I was getting, I'm too much of a cheap ass to pay for YouTube, so I got to sit through the freaking ads.
Oh
I was getting
yeah,
like 5 Tester and She ads an hour leading up to
don't
that
need
election.
that.
Yeah, yeah, and man, I never learned anything about either of their policies or policy differences. It's like stuff like I, Tim, I'm a cattle rancher. Tim Sheeby, he bought a ranch in Montana and he sells knickknacks, stuff like that. I'm like,
But it's true. But it didn't move anything anyway.
uh, yeah, so it didn't work. It didn't work. I wonder if a more mature perspective, a more mature approach might have worked. Like if, well, okay, here
Well, you
what,
can't coordinate with the dark money groups with the third party expenditures. They do what they do, and you as the candidate have no control of it. You don't know.
what would happen if Testers ads had been more like, um, Tim Sheehy is a good man and his heart's in the right place. This election is about policy. And here's what Tim Sheehy claims currently to support. Here's what I claim to support.
Yeah, but I'll tell you that's where we get.
Vote on which of the two things you like.
But there's the key thing. Those weren't John Tester's ads that we're talking bad about.
Oh, those two are dark money ads.
Yeah, so the ones John Tester's ads were about him, his work, his record, things like that. He might have had a couple that were poking Sheehy in the eye, but most of those negative ads were third party groups thinking they're supporting John Tester.
Okay.
I don't think they necessarily backfired. I think it was a bad year and just bad year to be on that ballot and that ticket, and that's just the way the chips fall.
So there were some where hunters are talking. So it's a Tester ad where a hunter is making the case that Tester's better for hunters than Sheehy. Do you remember some of those?
Yeah, not I can't remember the dark money group because I knew one of the guys
Well,
in
I
it.
don't think that was. Not all of those were dark money because I got approached to make one.
Yeah, but you didn't get approached by a Tester's campaign, did you?
Yeah, I think it was. I'm almost sure it was. I know it was. There was a Tester staffer that I've met in town a couple times in Miles City, and he put me in touch with like his film crew. I decided to not do it because I have my own thing I'm trying to do, which is like change hearts and minds when it comes to the direction of hunting. And
Well, it's your fault then. We would have won if you would have made the.
oh fuck no. No, you would have lost by more. But so I can't be wading into politics, like or the tiny little chance that I'm going to make any kind of difference just gets cut in half right there.
But I got to
you
tell you,
know?
do not be afraid to weigh into policy. One of these guys
No,
comes in.
hell no. Hell no. I'm not afraid of that. Whatever's best for hunting is what I'm going to advocate for. Yeah.
If there's a bill that's important, people need to light up their phones, call them and say, you need to vote for this or vote against it. If they do something wrong, you need to hold them accountable and say, boy, you betrayed us with this, and we're going to let you hear about it. But you're not going to talk about how people vote. That's politics. You talk about the policy.
The policy, absolutely. Absolutely. And I wonder about this the momentum to sell off public lands in the BLM and the Forest Service. Like once there are concrete proposals involving specific pieces of property, I think there's going to be a lot of momentum against it.
If it gets to the point where there's specific pieces of property, too late. That's already happening.
Oh,
The Crazy Mountains is a great example. I mean, when you're starting to do these wink wink deals or ordering things by land trades for executive orders for, there's a right about, I think it's a mine in Nevada that they're greasing things through for a land exchange to facilitate the mine, which is, I think it's wildlife values and it's got Native American cultural values. But when they start making decisions of bypassing public comment, and they already are, that's, we really, you don't get to stop the train once it's in motion. That's why you got to kind of put the brakes on now and say, we got bedrock environmental laws that require public comments and transparency. We need to follow them, and you just can't compromise on that because
oh,
we all have if I'm the miner, it's the best mine thing in the world, and you people should mind your own damn business. But there's 330 million landowners that should have a say in it. We just got to be able to assert that. It's kind of like, you know, April 19th, 1775. That
but
was the
go ahead.
that's where it all started. People took a stand in Lexington and Concord because they had none of these rights. And if you read, the Bill of Rights, they're enumerated. Those were the gripes that those people had leading up to that day that they didn't have from the British government. That's why they asserted those and said these are really important core values of ours. If we don't assert them, all of them, we're going to lose them all.
So I feel like we might be on unprecedented times, perhaps. Like there could be some bold proposal. We are going to sell off the Gallatin National Forest to the state of Montana.
Could happen.
You don't think that there would be a massive public outcry against that?
Yeah, but what's the cost? You look at the people that are having massive public. There's millions of people protest weekends for cuts to LEAP. Is it stopping it yet? No. What has to happen is, the problem we were having now is the executive branch is basically seizing authority from the legislative branch. Well, in the judiciary, and I can't remember a
like
time
ignoring ignoring court orders that prevent sending
members of Congress have egos.
Okay.
And those people traditionally would stand up to a president and say, oh no, even their own party, it happened to Bill Clinton, it happened to Obama, it happened to Biden. Oh no. And they get pissed and they get punished. My old boss did the overruled them, did the congressional review on the Brazilian beef imports. Boy, Secretary Vilsack will probably hate him for the rest of his life for doing that and embarrassing. He stood up to Congress has to assert its authority. If they don't, they lose it, and that's where we're in a constitutional crisis because the checks and balances are starting to fall apart. And people can blame Trump. Trump's not the one who's refusing to assert his role. It's Congress collectively that's doing that. It's like, well, Jesus, let's just get rid of you then and save the money.
Oh,
you're not going to do anything.
Yeah. Well, there's the there is the case for term limits, which I gather you're not a huge fan of. If there were term limits in the Senate and in the House, then people would be more likely to voice opposition to policies they don't like.
Not a chance. Not a chance. I think they'd be
Wait, if you're a
incentivized.
term limited senator, you're not going to go. Okay, you're a senator and you're going to go up for election again in 2 years. Trump will freaking make it impossible for you to get reelected if he wants.
No, because he didn't. He failed a bunch of times. He failed in. Um, he tried to do that in 2018 and failed. He tried to do that to John Tester. He was pissed, but
No,
it didn't work.
but what he'll do is he'll back a primary opponent.
Why would you want to give more power to an executive that's overasserting its power by having term limits? Just like the Montana
I think it would
legislature.
limit their power. Because if I'm a senator, I'm like, hey, man, I can't run again anyway. So I don't need the president's blessing. I'm just going to say what I think.
Yeah, but that doesn't work that way. And then, like we see in the Montana legislature, by the time people are effective and able to do things, they're gone.
Okay.
So it turns over the powers to the
You know way more about this shit than I do. I'm just making noise. So
did you like your property tax increase?
I don't know what it was or is. Didn't I get? I know I got to check. No, dude. I have not. I've lived in the house I'm in now since 2011. I have never opened up my utility bill. I have no idea. Yeah. And it's like, I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. I don't know. Like, I just know that I have enough to pay for it. So, and I gotta pay for it. So I don't even know. I thought I got a couple checks, like refund checks.
Yeah. So you overpaid
for my property taxes.
You overpaid by thousands of dollars. And then they gave you a few crumbs back and declared themselves heroes.
Oh, that's what happened? Okay.
Yeah. Do some math. You'll be pissed. But you're not like most Americans. That's just, well, nothing I can do about it, or it just happened, or whatever. But it's one of those things that being more engaged citizens, that's how we do things like prevent the sell-off of public lands.
I'm about to vote to have my property taxes increase. There's a levy for the schools, and I'm going to vote.
I vote for those too, but it gets to raise my taxes much more. I won't be able to because Jesus, I'm going to have to sell my house. I won't be able to afford the taxes.
So property taxes have gone up a lot, huh? In Montana.
Oh God! Now Eastern Montana didn't get hit as bad in the last appraisal in June. You should be getting another valuation, and you're going to get hit.
No,
big. Okay. I think mine in Silverboe County were a 36% increase.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
we're not talking about.
And that equates to $1,000 or $2,000
a year.
It
was like $1,000. Yeah. I mean, it hurts. And when you got people that when they're on a fixed income and stuff, like I am now.
Well, I've never understood that term. Weren't you getting a particular salary when you were with Tester?
Yeah, but you think about somebody who's 70 and they're on Social Security. They can't go out and really get another job. You can't do anything. They're stuck on Social Security. That's what that generates.
Okay, but you were on a fixed income when you were working for Tester.
I could have worked 2 jobs. I could have worked another. Well, the ethics rules wouldn't allow it, but most people of working age, that's an option they have. They should,
Oh, so when somebody says I'm on a fixed income, what they're saying is I don't have the latitude to go get more work.
Yeah.
Okay.
People are on disability or they're too old to work or something. They're all they have is Social Security because some jackass absconded with their pension and pulled an Enron. There's a fair amount of that, but and I think I've been that guy. You sit there, look down on people and whatever. You're lazy, and then being a mailman was one of the best educations in the world. Some of the hardest working people I ever met were living in a trailer park in Missoula. Best people in the world. And I'll tell you, there's no harder working class of society than a single mother working 3 jobs to feed her kids.
Oh, yeah, man. If my heart goes out to anybody, it's them. I mean, that's a person you got to root for sure.
Absolutely. And it's not like they have options and, they got pregnant, didn't mean to, didn't have option, whatever. And here they are, they're stuck.
Yeah.
So it's
I live in a trailer house and I'm the dad to a corgi.
Oh yeah, you do. You have an attack cookie. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a modular home, so I always call it a trailer house. I mean, it
Depends on where
came
you
in
are.
on a
Some
trailer,
I lived in a trailer in college, and that was
I
good
did too. I
experience
lived
too.
in two different trailers. One of them was in Bozeman, 30 yards, 30 yards from the interstate. And it was on a corner. Oh my God, it was so loud because semis would come around that corner all times of day, middle of the night, and hit the Jake brakes.
Oh,
You know,
oh yeah.
I got so good at sleeping through noise living in that house or
Now,
that
where on the street was you partied
trailer.
to college at MSU? So
Yeah, right. Well, that's how I got good at sleeping through noise. It's just a few more drinks.
yeah, yeah, pass out.
All right. Unless there's anything else you want to discuss, I'm gonna.
No, no, I think we're good. I mean, we can start, in the future, with stay tight, and I'll keep you posted, and hopefully you can make the world be better and get people a little more active, and stick with it.
Yeah, well, let's keep our eye out for opportunities to collab.
Absolutely, man. And if I find some ranchers that want to partner and have some access and some things, I'll holler at you.
All right. Nice chatting with you, Eric. Have a good
You too,
night.
pal.
All
Yeah,
right.
good seeing you, man.
Bye.